There are mornings when the body speaks before the mind even wakes. A quiet stiffness in the hands, a slower rise from the bed, a gentle dizziness that wasn't there 10 years ago. These moments don't announce themselves with drama. They slip into life like dust settling on an old cabinet. And yet it is in these small, almost invisible signs that early decline begins. No alarm, no warning, just a loosening of the screws, as Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara used to say, not to frighten, but to remind us that aging is a long conversation between the body and time, and that conversation changes when we stop listening. Many people after 60 feel this shift. The recovery from a simple chore takes longer. The body hesitates before standing. A jar lid becomes harder to open. These are not failures. They are messages, whispered early, so that we can act while there is still room to act. And the truth is, most decline doesn't begin with disease. It begins with the loss of small habits that once kept the body moving, circulating, breathing, adapting. That quiet fading of effort, of movement, of curiosity, that is where aging accelerates. Dr. Andrew Weil has a phrase for something that most people never see or feel directly: the slow burn of inflammation. Not the dramatic kind that comes with fever or injury, but the barely noticeable one that simmers beneath the surface for years. He describes it as a smoldering fire that changes the way the body heals, the way the joints move, even the way the mind thinks. And in many older adults, that fire is fed not by illness, but by the daily habits we stopped paying attention to. Long periods of sitting, shallow breathing, processed foods that creep into the pantry because they're easier, stress carried alone in a quiet house. These small things, repeated every day, become fuel for a fire we never intended to feed. But what is remarkable and comforting is that the same daily habits can also quiet that fire. One step taken in the morning, one stretch before lifting a grocery bag, one moment of breath before beginning the day. None of this is extreme. None of this is beyond reach. And when placed in the right order, these habits shift the way the body ages. This video brings you 11 steps, arranged not by trend or popularity, but by the logic of physiology, the way the body actually heals, stabilizes, and rebuilds itself. There is a sequence the body prefers, a natural rhythm. When we follow that rhythm, healing becomes easier. When we ignore it, every improvement becomes heavier than it needs to be. These steps are not complicated. They don't require strength or youth or expensive tools. They are the same principles followed quietly by people who live long lives with clarity and movement, without ever calling them routines. And beneath the science, beneath the traditions of places like Okinawa or Sardinia, there is something deeper: the desire to remain independent, to stand without help, to walk through one's own doorway without fear, to cook a meal, water the plants, tie the shoes, and know that the body will respond. This fear, the fear of losing independence, is far more present in older adults than the fear of illness itself, and that is why these steps matter. They honor what most people do not say out loud. So before we begin, breathe for a moment. Allow yourself the possibility that things can still improve, that your body, even now, is waiting for the right order of care. Let us take these steps slowly, one by one, like tightening the screws on a cherished piece of furniture. A small movement today, another tomorrow. Not rushed, not forced, just a return to yourself. When you're ready, we'll begin with the first truth of healthy aging, why everything starts with mobility. There is a quiet truth that many people discover only after the age of 60, often on an ordinary morning. The body wakes a little slower, the knees take a moment before cooperating, and the first steps toward the kitchen feel heavier than they once did. It is a subtle resistance, as if the joints are asking for permission before moving. And in this small hesitation lies one of the earliest signs of decline. Not because the body is giving up, but because the hinges that once opened easily now need a touch of care before they begin their work. Mobility is often treated like a minor detail, a warm-up, something optional, yet it is the foundation upon which everything else rests. When movement becomes difficult, even the best intentions in nutrition, strength, or mental clarity struggle to take root. The body has its own priorities, and mobility sits at the entrance of all of them. When the joints move freely, blood flows with more ease, oxygen travels more efficiently, glucose is handled more gracefully, healing becomes less of a burden. But when the joints stiffen, the body expends more energy on simple tasks, leaving less for restoration. The effort of bending, reaching, or rising becomes disproportionate to the task itself, slowly draining the reserves that once supported vitality. This is why efforts in other areas sometimes feel disappointing. A person eats better, breathes deeper, or takes long walks, yet still feels something is missing. Without mobility, the body works harder than it should, and the benefits of healthier habits take longer to appear. Across the world, in the quiet dawn light of Okinawa, elders begin their day not with intensity, but with tenderness. They call it karada o okosu, the gentle awakening of the body. Soft stretches, fluid motions, small rotations. It is less a routine and more a morning greeting to the joints that carry them through their lives. There is wisdom in this simplicity. Before they lift a basket or walk a hill, they prepare the body as one would oil the hinges of a well-used gate. This early attention prevents the stiffness that accumulates overnight and minimizes the strain placed on cold joints. It is the kind of care that looks insignificant from the outside, but transforms the entire day. A simple sequence of small glides in the ankles, hips, and shoulders, done while standing near a counter or the back of a chair, has the power to wake the body without demanding anything from it. Even 2 minutes can shift the way movement feels. The goal is not performance, intensity, or repetition. The goal is preparation. When the joints feel supported, the rest of the body follows. Walking becomes lighter. Breathing becomes deeper. Circulation improves without effort. Many people notice that this small preparation makes the rest of their morning activities easier, as if the day unfolds with fewer obstacles. Your body is very much like that garden gate you may have opened 1,000 times. When it has gone untouched for too long, the wood swells, the metal resists, and a gentle push becomes a strain. But a small moment of care, a cloth, a bit of oil, a soft movement, reminds the hinge of what it was built to do. It loosens, not by force, but by attention. Mobility is the oil. Mobility is the invitation. Without it, the rest of the steps ahead feel heavier than they need to be. With it, the body remembers its rhythm again. When the body begins to loosen with age, the right guidance makes all the difference. If these insights are helping you, consider subscribing so you don't miss the steps that keep your independence alive. There comes a moment, often unnoticed at first, when the world feels slightly less steady under the feet. A small wobble while stepping off a curb, a brief pause before turning in the hallway. The body hesitates, not out of fear, but out of a softened connection between movement and awareness. This gentle shift often begins in the early 60s, long before anyone considers themselves fragile. Balance does not disappear suddenly. It fades quietly, the way a familiar melody becomes harder to recall, even though it once lived effortlessly in the mind. This fading asks for attention, not alarm, because balance is more than the ability to stand upright. It is the quiet thread that holds independence together. Inside the body, a delicate network of proprioceptive nerves sends constant messages to the brain, describing where each limb is, how the weight is distributed, and how quickly the body should respond. With less stimulation, these nerves lose their sharpness. They become slower, less precise, like old radio signals that once came in clear and begin to soften with time. Studies have shown that even small, daily stimulation strengthens these signals again. The brain listens better. The feet respond sooner. The body regains the confidence it once carried without thought. This renewed communication does not require intensity. It simply needs presence, small movements that reawaken the pathways that aging tries to silence. Across the hills of Sardinia, elders navigate uneven paths and stone steps that twist in unpredictable directions. Their bodies adapt because the land demands it, not through force, but through familiarity. Their balance remains alive because the nervous system is never left to rest for too long. Every shift of the terrain becomes a lesson, every slope a reminder. It is not athleticism, it is the natural calibration of a life lived in movement. For many of them, balance remains sharp well into their 80s and 90s, carrying them with a grace that seems effortless, but is rooted in years of gentle challenge. A quiet, grounded technique can help the body reconnect with itself. Standing near a sturdy surface, the simple shifting of weight from heel to toe, and then side to side, awakens the small stabilizing muscles that often go unused. It reminds the ankles and feet of their purpose. This small motion, lasting only a moment, murmurs to the body, "I am still here. We are still connected." Over time, these shifts strengthen the very signals that protect elders from the dangers of sudden imbalance or unexpected steps. It becomes less about practice and more about reintroducing the body to a dialogue it once had daily. Balance is like a compass that keeps you oriented in your own life. When the compass grows dull, you are still moving, but less certain of the ground beneath you. When it is recalibrated, even the simplest steps feel safer, steadier, more familiar. Restoring balance is not about defying age. It is about ensuring that the years ahead remain navigable. In the order of the steps we explore today, balance stands guard just after mobility, supporting the quiet, steadfast independence every person hopes to preserve. There comes a time when certain movements begin to reveal more about aging than any number on a medical chart. Standing up from a sofa that feels slightly lower than it used to, lifting a grocery bag and sensing an unexpected heaviness, pausing on the second step of a staircase because the legs need a breath before continuing. These moments are not failures, they are reflections. They show where the body is placing its weight, where strength has quietly shifted, and which muscles are still carrying the story of a lifetime. And more often than not, it is the thighs, the hips, and the core that tell that story most honestly. These areas support the movements that define independence: rising from a chair, moving through a doorway, lowering into bed, navigating steps, recovering from a small stumble. They are the deep pillars that keep a person standing tall, even when age tries to bend the spine and soften the legs. Research over the years has shown that these muscle groups are not just important for movement. They are linked to longevity itself, not through extremes or athletic performance, but through the simple truth that when the body can lift itself, it can live more freely. Strength in these areas offers a kind of quiet safety, a reassurance that everyday life remains within reach. In many traditional households across Japan, strength is woven into daily routines without being labeled as exercise. Living close to the floor requires frequent rising and lowering, each movement gently shaping the thighs and core. This constant engagement creates resilience without strain, reinforcing stability without the burden of structured training. It is a kind of natural conditioning, born from culture rather than discipline, a reminder that strength does not always come from effort, but from repetition built into life itself. A small, supported rising motion, steadying the hands on a counter or chair, lifting the body with patience and lowering it with care, can nurture these independence muscles in a way that respects the body's limits. 2 or 3 repetitions, even done slowly, awaken dormant fibers that aging tries to quiet. Over time, the body begins to remember the ease it once had, the confidence it carried without thinking. And the remarkable thing is that this memory does not belong to youth alone. It lives in the body at any age when movement is given the chance to return. These muscles are your personal elevator. When they are strong, each floor of your life remains accessible. When they weaken, even the first step can feel distant. Strengthening them is not about chasing a younger version of yourself. It is about preserving the ability to live with independence, grace, and choice. In the sequence of healthy aging, this step follows mobility and balance for a reason. Once the hinges are loosened and the compass is steady, the body is ready to rise again, not with force but with dignity. There are days when the mind feels just a little heavier than before, as if thoughts take the long way around before arriving. A name hides on the tip of the tongue. A familiar word slips away. A task begun in the kitchen ends forgotten in the living room. These moments can create a quiet worry that something deeper is fading. But often, what the brain is asking for is not perfection, but nourishment. Not only food, but movement, breath, and the gentle circulation that keeps its pathways alive. The brain does not dim overnight. It softens slowly when the body's rhythms fall out of sync with the needs of memory. Long periods of sitting or living at a slower pace can lead to shallow breaths that never quite reach the lower lungs. When breath becomes limited, the flow of oxygen to the brain follows the same pattern, and without that steady supply, the areas responsible for memory and clarity begin to work harder than they should. It is not decline, it is exhaustion. The science behind this is simple. Gentle movement paired with intentional breathing increases blood flow to the hippocampus, the region of the brain that helps store memory, navigate spaces, and maintain emotional balance. When oxygen and circulation rise, the brain feels less burdened. It becomes more awake, more organized, more present. In many long-lived communities around the world, brain health is not something treated with special tasks, but with natural rhythms built into the day. Elders garden slowly, bending and rising with the soil. They sweep courtyards in long motions that match the cadence of their breath. They walk slopes and uneven paths that invite the heart to beat a little stronger. These actions do not look like training, yet they support cognitive longevity more effectively than many structured programs. Their bodies stay warm, their lungs expand fully, and their minds benefit from the constant dialogue between breath and movement. A short, unhurried walk down a corridor, combined with slow nasal breathing, creates a moment of harmony between the nervous system and the heart. Each step becomes an invitation for circulation to rise. Each breath becomes a message to the brain that it is still supported. For someone living alone, recovering from grief, or moving through the day with quiet pain, this simple act can feel like a return to the body rather than a demand upon it. There is no pressure in the pace. There is no standard to meet. It is simply a way of saying, stay awake, stay here, stay alive. The brain is very much like a lantern. When the flame inside is fed with oxygen and steady movement, it burns with clarity, soft but bright. When the air becomes thin or stagnant, the light flickers, not from age but from lack of care. Supporting brain vitality is not about fighting time. It is about giving the mind the conditions it needs to stay lit. And in the natural order of the steps we have explored, mobility, balance, strength, this fourth step becomes the breath that keeps the entire structure illuminated. Aging, as Dr. Shigaki Hinohara taught, is a series of small adjustments, like tightening the screws of something cherished. The steps we explored follow the body's natural order: loosen the joints, steady the footing, rebuild the muscles that help you rise, and keep the mind awake through breath and gentle movement. Dan Buettner's observations remind us that longevity grows from simple, purposeful habits carried through ordinary days. Early decline begins when these small needs are ignored, yet strength returns when they are honored. Each step protects independence and clarity, and the beginning is often just the one your body quietly asks for today.